welcome to Visions of Success Internet Talk Radio. I'm your host, Dr. Fred Simkovsky. You know, someone once said that success is 10% inspiration and 90% perspiration. Well, I believe that you need just as much inspiration, if not more, than just perspiration. I mean, after all the sweat in the world isn't going to make you successful unless you are inspired. This is the place to go to seek insights, inspiration, advice, tricks, tips on how to attain the life and career success you've always dreamed of, wanted, and desired.
Today, I am with Jonathan Hawley. He is the author of Dissolve Your Debt Manual, working to help U.S. citizens everywhere return to prosperous, debt-free living. Now, Jonathan is a tireless advocate helping to rid people of the strangling personal and national debt that we have all been forced to deal with for so long. The inspiration and practical debt dissolving information provided by Jonathan Hawley, Dissolve Your Debt Manual, does just that, and it works every time for every U.S. citizen. Dissolve Your Debt is online, and the Dissolve Your Debt Manual is at the website dydorders.com. That's dydorders.com. Okay? And if you go there, you'll get all the information you need. So, Jonathan, how are you today?
I'm great, Dr. Fred. Thanks for having me on your show today.
Oh, absolutely terrific. Always like people who are going to help our audience in some portion of their life. So today we're going to talk about get out of debt right now. Is the government supposed to pay your debt for you? What a great, considering the economy and the way our Congress is so stymied, this is a great, absolutely great subject to talk about. Get out of debt right now. Is the government supposed to pay your debt for you? So, Jonathan, let's start with our first question here to get this rolling. The way you teach people to get out of debt in your book is possible, you say, because the government guaranteed total debt settlement for each U.S. citizen. So when did the government make this change, and why did they do it?
Well, surprisingly, this happened 80 years ago.
80 years ago?
Yes, sir. 1933. Wow. June 5th, 1933, matter of fact. Franklin Delano Roosevelt was the president at the time, and they enacted within his entire administration what was called the New Deal. And in the New Deal, many provisions were made, including this debt settlement capacity, because at that point in time, the reason that they made this change is because they switched from the gold standard. And our money, it was no longer backed by a precious metal. It wasn't an equity-based economy any further. They put us into a debt-based economy, and they confiscated all the gold. Everybody had to turn it in.
Yeah.
So at that point in time, they took away a certain capacity of prosperity away from the citizenry, the folks that put the government in place in the first place. So they said, because we took something away from you, the people, we had something back of equal or greater value, and they did. And that came in the form of guaranteed debt relief through the Treasury.
That's interesting. Never knew that. Okay, and I make you bet most of our audience didn't know that either.
Well, guess who does? The 1%. That's very few people. They didn't teach it in public school. Matter of fact, you can go all the time and expense it takes to get a master's degree from a higher level education facility in this country. They'll still never teach it. You'll never learn this.
Wow. Unbelievable. So, your book teaches readers how to get themselves out of debt by handling their bills correctly, okay, which is something else they don't teach in school anymore. When you get a bill in the mail, what can you do with it to settle it through the government?
Okay. This is very key, very important. Of course, we go into more detail about this and how you actually do it in the Dissolve Your Debt manual, but in essence, whenever you get a billing presentment in the mail, which is a claim of debt, or as we colloquially call it, a bill, what you're getting is a claim or a statement of a balance owed, and it comes with an attached payment coupon. If you take this bill and mark it up correctly with the right words in the right format, and then you send this marked up thing into the right address within the government, actually 3 very specific offices of the IRS, it will generate a check from the Treasury back to the company claiming the debt. Let's say it's Citibank Visa, just out, off the top of my head.
Yeah.
All right? They will get a check from the Treasury with your name in all capital letters on it to apply to that account.
Now, when you get a bill, any kind of a bill, a utility bill?
Any kind of claim of debt. This goes from all the way up to a mortgage, which is the biggest debt most people incur, all the way down to the smallest utility bill.
Interesting. So tell me, if you can actually have the government pay that, all right, is there a certain limit to how many times you can do that?
No, there's no limitation on dollar amount or frequency. And this is where it gets to a point of really becoming educated on what's happening here, because the government isn't actually paying it for you. You're paying it for you through the government. Because all United States citizens have unlimited credit at the Treasury with which to dispensate debt, to dissolve debt, to settle debt claims. That's what the New Deal did. And what happened shortly after this New Deal was enacted is all the births in this country, natural births to loving parents, started to be registered by the hospitals for the state. And those birth certificates were actually, and still are, bonds that are openly traded on the New York Stock Exchange. And you can never get the original. That's always kept on file at the Department of Vital Records in New York. But you can get a certified copy, and if you get a certified copy, there's different places that allow you to do it for 10 or 15 bucks online, and they mail it to you. It's not the original, it's a certified copy, but you'll notice at the very bottom, maybe in the left-hand corner, in very small print, it'll say American Banknote Company, or Chicago Banknote Company, or one of these types of organizations. It comes on the same type of paper that money is printed on. So your birth has been registered, and that bond that it was registered by has been openly traded on the New York Stock Exchange your entire life. Your existence has been earning money for the government since you were a month old.
Really?
So we all have this unlimited credit at the Treasury with which to offset these claims, so you're not getting things for free, and you're not having the government do it for you. You're doing it for you once you realize how to do things correctly. But we were all taught wrong. See, this is a generational issue going back at least 80 years. We were all taught by our parents, who were taught wrong by their parents, that you get a bill in the mail and you tear off the payment coupon and you put it into the free envelope that they send to millions of people every month. Who knows how much that costs? And then you write a check and you put everything in the envelope and mail it off, and you assume you did everything correctly. But in actuality, every time you've ever done that, you've paid the bill twice for that month. Because the receiving corporation, they know how to monetize the payment coupon, just like you learn how to do and dissolve your debt through the Treasury. And they also know how to monetize the personal check you wrote from your bank account. But they never give you credit for paying twice. They act like it's not happening. It's called, and it's illegal, it's called twinning a stream of income. So you got to understand that when you do things wrong, the country gets into more and more debt, and you get into more and more personal debt, because nobody's doing it right except 1% of the people, causing a major issue.
Interesting. Now, my next question is, so I get, let's say, my telephone, my Time Warner bill, okay, and it's for $100 some odd. And if I do the right information on the coupon, I send it. Where do I send it? I don't send it back to the company.
No, there are 3 very particular offices of the IRS in the country where we send these things into. All right, and divisions, let's say, that are set up to facilitate these types of settlements through the Treasury based off the law. See, this is all based off the laws that were changed 80 years ago. This is a very profound thing that they did. And it's been in operation the whole time. So, it's waking up to the reality of things, and when you start doing things correctly, everything starts to improve for you, personally and nationally.
This is so interesting, and your manual, of course, goes into a hell of a lot more detail of how this is handled. So, let's say I take that bill, and I do what I'm supposed to, and I send it to the right division. How do I know that bill's going to pay it on time? So let's say a utility that they say, pay upon receipt, it's not going to go more than 30 days before it gets paid by the Treasury.
Well, when you stand in commerce correctly and start acting as a creditor instead of a debtor, you learn to view things in a bit of a different perspective with maybe a more long-range view. So when you realize whenever you get any bill from any utility company or credit card company that with one swipe you can pay off the entire balance through the Treasury, you can start doing things like prepaying for a year's worth of service based off of what, you might contact you. Because this is all about doing good commerce correctly, honestly, with integrity and honor. Okay, so you want to maintain a good relationship with your power company. So you say, hey, folks, based off of last year's usage and whatever projected inflationary cost will be part of this next year's usage, can you estimate what my next 12 months will be based off of my history and inflation and send me a bill for that? Sure. Well, then when you get it, it'll have a payment coupon, which is a blank check, and we can get into that further. By law, they send you a blank check to pay the bill, mark it up, send it into the Treasury, and prepay them for a year.
Wow.
Why wouldn't you?
And only one, this is interesting. So only 1% of this country knows anything about this.
Yes, unfortunately. But we're working on that here. I mean, we got a big job ahead of us, but maybe it's, 4 or 5% now, or 6 or 7. We're growing. But see, the battle, quote unquote, that we're fighting is the national debt. That digital clock up in New York that's gotten so famous, it's spinning forward so quickly as the nation gets further and further in debt. It's happening so fast that we have to work as fast as we can at a grassroots level to bring up that percentage from 1 to 5 to 15 to 50. So once we start doing this in mass with more of a mass consciousness about it, that national debt will be zero because everybody's personal debt will be zero. But it takes an understanding of what's going on and what we're really thrust into commercially. Most people have no clue there's a differential because they've never been educated. So that's all we're doing in this manual is filling in the educational gaps left by public school over the past several generations. But we're also at the same time in a equally unique position because the stuff that we teach in the Dissolve Your Debt manual, we didn't come up with it. We're very imaginative and creative people, sure. But what we're doing is acting as the messenger for what was guaranteed and created by the government and put into law 80 years ago.
Wow. To me, this is just so amazing because the number of people out there that are going into foreclosure for their homes, okay, because they've run into problems, they've lost their job for some reason or another, and they're going into foreclosure, and if they had known this, their mortgage payment would have been paid all along.
Well, matter of fact,
is that right?
It goes even beyond that, DocFred. Yes, it's right. But if people were equipped with this knowledge since senior year in high school, nobody would ever be doing that. The mortgage is not necessary to purchasing a home. It's been made out to be that way for the profit and gain of debt-claiming corporations. There's a lot of companies out there that their business is debt, okay?
Yes,
but when you go to the settlement on a new home purchase, you're actually defrauded. And a lot of the debt that we get into is as a result of being defrauded. There's a lot of fraud going on because the nation has been in bankruptcy since 1933, at least.
Wow.
So we actually operate in bankruptcy and have to because we're in a debt-based economy. So when you go to the settlement table for the purchase of a new home, they stick this big stack of paperwork under your nose, and one of the very first things that they have you sign is a promissory note. Now, a promissory note is the same as the $20 bill you have in your pocket or your purse or your billfold. So
Yes.
you sit down and put your signature on a promissory note for $250,000, the sale price of that home.
Right.
Well, you just turn that piece of paper into a $250,000 bill. Now, you go through all the rest of the disclosures and you get down to one of the very last pieces of paper in that settlement package for this new home purchase, and that's the mortgage financing agreement. At that point in time, when you sign that piece of paper agreeing to a 30-year term for whatever interest and a monthly payment, you then go into debt through coercion by the title company and the realtor and the lender. You go into debt on what you've actually owned free and clear since you signed the promissory note at the beginning.
Wow.
But nobody knows what to do.
Interesting. So, just for our audience, because this is important, because, there's a lot of hucksters out there that claim all kinds of things, okay? This is a law that was put in 80 years ago, okay? And anybody can go up and read whatever that law is, right?
Oh, yeah. It became part of the United States statutes at large at Chap 3838 Stat 112. Chap 3838 Stat 112 is very important because it mirrors the public policy that came into Congress that made it then law. And it persists to this day, 80 years later. And it's important to realize that this commercial function was put in place for all United States citizens because they knew the changes brought forth in the New Deal would actually put people in front of debt claims for the rest of their life. So you have the unlimited credit at the Treasury to go into and get out of debt over and over and over again until you're 250 years old. The issue is that we've been placed in this very small box thinking that the only way to get the money to pay off the debt and keep the wolves away and the bills paid is through our labor, and that is its own level of debt right there. So each earned by labor dollar that people come across in their day-to-day, week-to-week, month-to-month life actually has 3 levels of debt embedded within it. So their only way to actually get out of debt, because there isn't enough money to ever pay out the debt, is administratively through the Treasury. That's why it's been set up that way. But if you don't know how to do it or that it's even there, you're always going to be doing it wrong, and you'll never figure it out on your own. So whenever I've heard it all, and there are plenty of hucksters, quote-unquote, out there, whenever you hear an advertisement for, here, you got back taxes, we'll settle it for 50 cents on the dollar, or, whatever your debt issue is, they'll help you settle it for pennies on the dollar, or whatever it turns out to be. Any of those companies that you hear are acting as interlopers for their personal profit and gain, corporately, to provide the service for you that you can actually do for yourself when you know how. They know you don't know how, so they profit wildly by overcharging you to do it for you. They're doing the same things through the Treasury. Big corporations know all about this. Your little corporation doesn't. See, most United States citizens, DocFred, they have no idea that there's the real them, the living man or woman, the living soul, but there's a commercial version of them that exists out there too that isn't them, but is the thing that gets all the bills. If you look at any claim of debt that you get, any bill you get in the mail, it's coming to your name in all capital letters. That isn't you. That's your legal title. When you were born and the hospital compelled your parents to register that birth, your parents were then, after stamping your little foot on the piece of paper, the certificate, the bond, were given an SS5 application. And that takes the birth name that you were given and turns it into a legal title and attaches a randomized number to it that has different uses and purposes depending on where you have dashes or do not have dashes. And that is your commercial identity that gives you a commercial indemnification or buffer over the course of your natural life to use and benefit from, but it is separate and distinct from you. Matter of fact, it only exists on paper.
Wow.
So that is what represents the United States citizen. All right? You're not in reality, legally and lawfully, you're not a United States citizen. You have one. You're a living soul endowed by God or a creator or the universe, okay? You're from the stuff of the stars. But commercially, in order to interact and for goods and services and the things that you would need over the course of your natural life, this commercial buffer has been provided to each United States citizen that gives them access to unlimited credit at the Treasury with which they can use to set up all the debt claims they're going to come in contact with because of the type of economy that we have set up here.
Wow. So all this is explained in the manual, right?
Yes, in very clear detail, because although it's profound to hear about it at first, the ABC 1, 2, 3 of what you have to do when you get a bill is you could do it with a crayon. It's not hard. You would never figure it out if you were trying to just figure out what to do on your own. But once you're taught it, it's very, very simple. But the learning curve comes in, and maybe this takes about 6 months, because there's a psychological, spiritual element here, and
Okay.
it takes some time for people to wrap their minds around the fact that your existence, their existence, has been earning money on the New York Stock Exchange in the form of your birth certificate bond for however long you've been alive, and by virtue of that, you have a mirror of unlimited credit at the Treasury to set off all these bills that you're getting. And it's very important to understand, every time you get a bill, most of these big debt claiming corporations, by law, have that payment coupon attached, because the law states, based off of the New Deal 80 years ago, any corporation claiming a debt against another corporate identity, like your legal title, must provide the remedy to settle the debt claim. So any corporation claiming a debt has to give you the money, send the check to remedy or settle the claim that they're presenting in the public venue. So that's why all these years we've been getting these payment coupons that we've been tearing off because we thought that's what we're supposed to do. But if you've been doing it right because you knew how to, you wouldn't be mired in what you're mired in now. So you can kind of see, by not knowing this, there might have been some profit motive over time, generationally speaking, but now it's become a necessity to bring this back to the surface so more than 1% can begin operating correctly, because we've seen what happens when you do things wrong. $18 trillion in debt, nobody has enough money, where I got an awful economy, all kinds of ups and downs, because those are the symptoms of doing things wrong in your economy. So when you start doing it right, more and more people do, everything starts to even out, and all the problems, at least the financial ones, which are a big part of what we're facing today, they melt away. Finally.
Wow. That is so unbelievable. So basically what you're saying is that these bonds taken out when we're born is earning interest all these years. Okay, it's building up money, and all this money is sitting in the Treasury, and the Treasury's not using any for anything?
Oh, they use money for all sorts of things. There's so much of it, people don't have a true scope, because each United States citizen, having this unlimited credit at the Treasury and having this birth certificate bond that's been earning all this money on the New York Stock Exchange their entire life, in addition to those things, each U.S. citizen is actually the source of all new money that comes into existence. Because, see, in 1933, they took us off the gold standard, as we spoke about, and they made us the backing value from that point on. So since that point in June 5th, 1933, all U.S. dollars have been backed solely by the faith, spirit, and energy of the U.S. citizens that live and work here over all that period of time. So I'm the money, you're the money, and everyone else that's a legal citizen in this country is the money, and you have the power to write up as much new money as you need to offset debt through the Treasury. So it's one huge pool of currency, and new currencies coming in all the time, but the traditional public media-hyped way of money coming into existence is what has caused a lot of the debt problems, because you've also at the same time got the United States corporation borrowing money into existence via the Federal Reserve Bank at interest, and the Federal Reserve Bank never loans them anything more than the principal. So where does the interest come from? So it's a cycle of debt that's been misadministered because so much of the public has been left in the dark about this. So now it actually necessitates the 1% becoming the 99. we literally, at a grassroots level, have to know this now because we're going to be the ones to fix it.
Wow.
We're actually going to be the ones to fix it, and it's beyond government.
Wow. This is so interesting. So let me give a quick recap here because I think I could go on and on because this is so interesting. Okay, today we're talking with Jonathan Hawley about his book, Dissolve Your Debt Manual, okay, which gives each of us U.S. citizens the way to become debt-free. What's interesting, and one of the things we spoke about today was when we're born, we get that Social Security number, but the government has also created a birth certificate bond. The money, since the moment we were born, if you will, and we got that Social Security number, has been building up in the Treasury, and we have not had the knowledge of how to access that, which we can start accessing tomorrow. Is that right, Jonathan?
That's absolutely correct. Once you know how to do it, you can begin, and there's no other thing necessary. Everything's already in place. You just got to know that it's there and know how to do it and then start to do it.
Excellent.
It's been set up for things to actually work this way, but I think people get a little bit confused. We really need to make that differential between being a living soul, a living man or woman, flesh and blood, and the legal title that gets the bills. Because that ain't you, and it was set up that way on purpose, okay? That legal title that also has that randomized number, sometimes uses a Social Security number attached to it, that's actually, well, it's kind of a commercial token. You, the living man or woman, flesh and blood, you're the beneficiary of what that thing can provide to you. You're the user, the signer, the agent, the authorized representative of that thing, that U.S. citizen, that legal title, but you're not the owner of it. The owner is Uncle Sam, the Department of Vital Records, and the Social Security Administration. So any claims of debt that come against that thing, the responsibility and the liability of the owner, which is Uncle Sam. You're just the user, the agent, the benefactor.
Excellent, excellent.
So when you really make these distinctions in your mind, not only is there no guilt, but there's no mystery, and there's no more pressure or labor necessary in order to have a commercially sound life. It's not, being able to get out of debt in this way is not dependent on you laboring 40 or 50 or 60 hours a week. Your existence has had value, tangible commercial financial value since you were born. That's how important United States citizens are, and that's how important this country is.
Wow. So the book is Dissolve Your Debt Manual. So, Jonathan, tell our audience how they can contact you. Again, how can they get this manual? Because every one of our listeners have to get this manual today.
Yes, I highly recommend it. You can go see all about this on our website. It's www.dydorders.com. That's D as in dissolve, Y as in your, D as in debt, orders with an S on the end, .com. dydorders.com. You can read all about this. There's a lot of free information there. Then you can purchase it, which we really recommend, and it'll change your life. Because really, you can buy this manual very inexpensively and take the practical knowledge and apply it and not have to worry about a $300,000 mortgage or car notes or credit card bills or any debt, medical bills, child support, tickets, court orders. They're all kinds of debt. And once you understand the commercial venue that you've been operating in without knowledge, you can stand as a creditor, not as a debtor, and you can get out of all this stuff. You know how to handle your mail correctly. All these years, people have hated going to the mailboxes always full of bills. The whole time, they've been full of the money to pay them.
Interesting. So, now, if they go to that website, is there somewhere that if they wanted to talk to you or get in contact you, you have contact information there?
Absolutely. There's a phone number, and there's a page, a link down at the bottom of the page.
Excellent.
Where you can email or be in contact with phone number, order number. We got everything set up there because we've been in business since 2010 when we first brought this to market through direct mail. And we have many testimonials, many long-standing relationships with customers, and changed a lot of people's lives. You know, it's a very interesting position to be in, to field a telephone call from a customer who's in tears.
Yeah.
You know, it's that life-changing, and it's like, how am I in a position to be a messenger of something so magnificent? I mean, let alone be the folks that actually created this, came up with it, and put it into place. So there's nothing sinister going on here. It's just a matter of getting to a point in your life where you're voluntarily educating yourself.
Jonathan, I want to, this is so exciting, okay? I have a copy of the manual. I am absolutely going to sit down and read it every day, so when my bills come next week, I get them all paid by my entity.
Yes, DocFred, you have it. That's how it works.
Excellent. Jonathan, I want to thank you for being with us today and educating our audience.
Thank you, DocFred. My pleasure.
Remember to go to my website, lifecareerbusinesscoach.com, for more information and assistance you may be looking for. There is a link there for this show, Visions of Success Internet Talk Radio, where you can listen to replays and more interviews on a regular basis. And be sure to subscribe to my monthly newsletter for more great learning and insight. This show airs every Friday and was hosted by amazing Women of Power Radio Network and in conjunction with Raven International Network. Have a great day and you can get it done.